This week, the Sturry Link Road project pushes deeper into the ground and closer to becoming a permanent structure on the landscape. North of the railway, activity begins to emerge, while to the south, the site intensifies at pace. Massive drainage works transform a waterlogged trench beside the A28 into a fully formed culvert system, with crews battling mud, groundwater, and constant pumping operations throughout the week. Across the south abutment, pre-augering gets underway for the next phase of sheet piling, as steel starts to rise from the piling platform one section at a time. Deliveries continue rolling into sight, archaeology progresses in the background, and formation levels steadily build across the route corridor. From deep drilled holes and close-up piling operations to low-level aerial passes across the evolving worksite, this episode captures another major step forward in the construction of the Sturry Link Road. This is episode 12, Piles, Pipes, Pumping. With piling operations preparing to ramp up on the south abutment, specialist equipment continues arriving onto site throughout the week. Large drill bits, piling components, and site containers are carefully unloaded directly onto the piling platform, with the rig itself assisting in the operation. These deliveries form a key part of the next construction phase, as crews prepare for extensive pre-augering and sheet piling works in the weeks ahead. From above, the scale of the operation becomes even clearer, with heavy plant and logistics moving in sync across the developing worksite. Along the edge of the A28, work now begins on a major new drainage and culvert section that will eventually form part of the wider infrastructure supporting the new link road. Crews start by excavating deep into the soft waterlogged ground, removing heavy sludge and saturated material before rebuilding the area layer by layer. Once the unsuitable material is cleared, Type 1 aggregate is brought in to create a solid, stable working base for the next stages of construction. To compact the material, crews use a remote-controlled trench roller designed specifically for confined and unstable ground conditions, allowing operators to safely compact the surface from a distance while achieving the density needed for long-term structural stability. It's tough, messy groundwork, but critical preparation for the infrastructure now taking shape across the site. Work is now intensifying on the south abutment, where crews have started pre-augering operations ahead of the next phase of sheet piling. Across this platform, a total of 88 holes will be drilled before the steel sheets are installed. By pre-drilling into the ground first, it helps guide the piles into position more accurately and reduces stress on the steel as the sheets are driven down into the earth. From outside the perimeter, the scale of the piling setup is already beginning to dominate the worksite. But up on the platform itself, the operation feels even more impressive at ground level, with drilling rigs, piling sheets and crews all working within a tightly controlled area. As the auger cuts deeper into the ground, the engineering below the surface starts to become clear. Some of these holes reach depths of around 8 meters, giving a rare look into the preparation work now underway beneath what will eventually become part of the new viaduct structure.
Thank you.
Work continues at pace on the new culvert installation beside the A28, as crews begin laying sections of twin-wall HDPE drainage pipe into the prepared trench. These large ribbed pipes are designed specifically for surface water and highway drainage applications, with a corrugated outer wall providing strength in the ground, while the smooth inner lining helps maintain efficient water flow through the system. Working from a carefully prepared concrete bed, each section is lowered precisely into place before being aligned and connected using coupling collars and junction fittings along the run. Although the process appears quick in time-lapse, accuracy here is critical. Line, level and stability all have to be carefully controlled as this section of drainage infrastructure steadily takes shape beneath the surface. With sections of the pre-augering now complete, crews begin the next stage of operations on the south abutment, installing the first runs of steel sheet piles into the prepared ground. Working in sequence with the earlier drilling operations, the piling rig carefully positions each sheet before driving it down into place along the edge of the future structure. These interlocking steel sections will eventually form part of a retaining system designed to support and contain the ground around the new abutment area. Throughout the operation, additional sheet piles continue arriving onto site, with deliveries feeding directly into the growing work zone as activity steadily increases across the platform. Even at this early stage, the scale of the engineering operation is beginning to change the skyline of the south abutment, with more piling work set to continue in the days ahead. Away from the piling platform, archaeological investigations also continue progressing across another section of the route. These stepped excavations form part of an ongoing Paleolithic trench investigation, where archaeologists carefully work through layers of soil and sediment in search of evidence that could help build a picture of the area's prehistoric landscape and early human activity. The stepped formation helps provide safe access into deeper sections of the excavation while allowing specialists to study the changing ground layers in detail, with each layer potentially representing thousands of years of environmental history beneath the surface of the site. As work continues on the culvert installation beside the A28, additional equipment is brought onto site to help manage the challenging ground conditions within the excavation. A temporary pump system is installed to remove standing water from the ditch, allowing crews to continue working safely and maintain progress within the waterlogged trench. The pumped water is redirected into a nearby holding pond as operations continue throughout the day. With water levels brought under control, crews begin placing Type 1 aggregate into the base of the excavation, gradually building up a more stable working surface within the trench. Compaction works then continue within the ditch as the newly placed material is consolidated in preparation for the next stages of the culvert construction. Although much of this activity takes place below ground level, it marks another steady step forward in the construction of the drainage infrastructure alongside the A28. A big moment in the filming of this episode, with thanks to both Volker Fitzpatrick and Volker Ground Engineering for allowing supervised access onto the south abutment during live sheet piling operations. From within the active work zone, the scale and precision of the operation becomes clear. The 35-ton excavator, fitted with a move axe attachment, lifts each steel sheet into position with controlled movement, rotating it and guiding it precisely into line before driving it into the ground. These are 8-meter interlocking steel sheet piles, each typically weighing in the order of several hundred kilograms, depending on section profile and thickness, designed to be driven deep into the ground to form a continuous retaining wall. Around 88 sheets in total will form this section, gradually enclosing the area to create what is effectively a cofferdam, a temporary watertight enclosure that allows construction work to take place safely below ground level in dry, stable conditions. Despite the size and power of the machine, the process is highly controlled. The rig is fitted with safety systems, including proximity sensors and audible warnings, helping maintain safe working distances around the operating area. These systems are part of strict piling safety protocols designed to protect ground crews working in close proximity to live plant and moving steel. Throughout the sequence, the machine continuously signals when personnel are within the operational envelope, reinforcing the controlled nature of work within such a tightly managed construction environment. From this position, the next sequence shows the machine working through the already installed line of sheet piles, sitting within the forming structure as the new retaining wall begins to take shape along the south abutment. From the sheet piling works, the view pulls back to drone level, revealing the wider south abutment and the forming cofferdam footprint. On the opposite side, pre-augering continues at pace, preparing the next line ahead of further sheet piling. Alongside the drilling operation, a digger and dumper are working in tandem to manage the arisings being produced by the auger. As each hole is drilled, the material brought up from depth is cleared away and redistributed across the working area, keeping the platform clean and allowing operations to continue without interruption. From above, the coordination across the site becomes clear. Drilling, piling, preparation, and material handling all running in parallel as the south abutment continues to take shape within the forming cofferdam. Between the south abutment and the southern roundabout, attention shifts to the developing route corridor. Recent wet weather has temporarily slowed progress along this section, with material movement and formation works paused while ground conditions recovered. As conditions improve, dozers return to the alignment to rework and redistribute stockpiled material, bringing the formation back up to specification and restoring the running surface for continued construction traffic. With operations back underway, the machines are effectively playing catch-up, pushing through the backlog created during the period of heavy rain and re-establishing progress along the route. As activity continues across the corridor, attention then returns to the south abutment, where the piling crew step away for a brief break in operations. That pause opens up a rare opportunity to move closer into the structure itself, shifting perspective down onto the platform for a more direct view of the works taking shape below. Work continues along the A28 as the culvert installation moves into another key stage of construction. At the base of the excavation, crews begin forming the drainage structure using precast concrete chamber sections, carefully positioned to create the foundation of the system. These ringed units form the lower structure of a manhole or inspection chamber, designed to allow access to the drainage network once complete. Once the base is in position, the surrounding trench is brought back up using Type 1 aggregate, placed in layers to rebuild the formation around the structure. Mechanical compaction follows, ensuring the material is properly consolidated around the newly installed sections. With the base prepared, additional precast concrete rings are lifted into place, each one set directly on top of the previous section. A bitumen seal is applied between joints to form a watertight connection, helping prevent ingress and ensuring long-term durability of the structure. As the build continues upwards, a further chamber section is installed, incorporating a surface access point that will eventually connect into the finished drainage system at ground level. Although much of this sequence is shown in time-lapse, each stage represents precise groundwork, forming one of the key drainage connections within the wider A28 corridor upgrade. From inside a Volker Fitzpatrick site vehicle, the perspective shifts onto the developing route through the A1 field, where the formation is still taking shape between the southern roundabout and the wider works corridor. A water bowser is in operation along the route, applying a controlled spray to the surface as the vehicle moves through site. This is standard practice on active earthworks, helping to suppress dust, stabilize working conditions, and maintain visibility across heavily trafficked construction routes during dry periods. With the surface still forming and materials being constantly reworked, this kind of support vehicle plays a key role in keeping the route operational as large-scale earth moving continues around it. There's also a moment of reflection from earlier in the project, a reminder of how quickly things change on site. Not long ago, this was simply a passing moment captured from behind the fence line. Now it's a full view from inside the operation itself, riding along the route in a working vehicle, documenting the same processes from a completely different perspective. As the site falls quiet with operations paused for the bank holiday weekend, the scale of the week's progress becomes fully visible from above. The drone passes low across the newly installed culvert beside the A28, a drainage system that now stretches through another major phase of construction. Over the course of the week, crews installed around 80 metres of 450mm diameter pipework, alongside a new manhole chamber and the forming outfall structure at the eastern end of the system. Only days earlier, much of this area was still a waterlogged excavation. After continuous pumping, groundwork preparation, pipe installation and compaction, the shape of the finished infrastructure is now clearly beginning to emerge within the landscape. From there, the route continues north, flying low along the developing formation corridor towards the south abutment, where progress has intensified throughout the week. Down on the piling platform, the transformation is even more striking. The first of 88 EZ19 steel sheet piles now stand driven into the ground around the forming cofferdam, marking the beginning of a major structural phase within the project. Orbiting around the piling rig and drilling equipment at close range, the scale of the engineering operation becomes impossible to ignore. Across the wider route, roughly 1,500 tons of Type 1 material continued arriving daily, as formation levels steadily built up between the southern roundabout and the south abutment. Meanwhile, ecological management and staged strimming operations also continued south of the railway, helping prepare further sections of the corridor for future works. Over the course of this episode, we've seen drainage systems installed, piling operations begin, pre-augering continue across the south abutment, archaeology progress through another stage of investigation, and route formation works push further forward across the site. But perhaps more importantly, this week felt like a turning point. The Sturry Link Road is no longer just preparation work and cleared ground. Permanent structures are now beginning to emerge from the landscape, steel in the ground, drainage taking shape, and the first real signs of the infrastructure that will eventually define this route for decades to come. This is the Sturry Link Road, and this was episode 12.